Be diving into the Seattle Seahawks offense and specifically looking at the potential of quarterback Geno Smith and their new offensive coordinator, Klint Kubiak.
Yeah, it's definitely an interesting situation.
It really is.
You've got a quarterback in Geno who just a few years ago was mainly known as a backup, and now he's broken Seattle's single-season passing record 2 years running.
And shattered it.
Shattered it, exactly.
So now he's paired with a new coordinator who's also looking for kind of a fresh start.
It's a really intriguing pairing with a lot of potential, and I think the most remarkable thing about Smith's recent success is that he managed to achieve a 70.4% completion percentage in 2024, even though they had a really weak running game.
They were really leaning on him.
They were absolutely leaning on him. The Seahawks were ranked 28th in the NFL for rushing that year.
Yeah, he had to shoulder a lot of the burden.
He really did.
And, that probably explains the high interception rate as well.
That's true. He threw the third most interceptions in the league that season with 15.
It's a double-edged sword, right?
Yeah, it is. His passing ability led to some phenomenal numbers, but it also led to some costly mistakes.
But for Kubiak, what do you think was the main appeal of coming to Seattle?
I think working with Geno Smith was a huge draw. He's spoken very positively about Smith's toughness and his clutch play. He specifically called out his leading fourth-quarter comebacks and game-winning drives since 2023.
He's definitely a believer.
Absolutely. He sees a quarterback who can win games.
And it's not just about Smith himself. Kubiak has also mentioned being excited about the other weapons on offense, guys like DK Metcalf, Jackson Smith-Njigba, and Charles Cross.
Oh, yeah. He's definitely excited about the potential of this group. And he's also mentioned wanting to work with Coach Mike Macdonald and build upon the team's strong defense.
So you have a coach who's enthusiastic about the quarterback, the offensive weapons, and the defense. But let's be real. There's a big imbalance on this offense. How does Kubiak plan to address that?
That's the big question, isn't it? For this team to live up to its potential, the Seahawks can't just rely on Smith's arm. They need to be more balanced. They need to have a more diverse attack.
Makes sense. As we saw in 2024, Smith had amazing success, but it came at a cost. Putting that much pressure on one player is not sustainable long term.
No, it's not. And it puts a lot on Kubiak's plate to try and figure out how to maximize Smith's strengths while creating a more balanced and sustainable offense.
It's like a puzzle, finding the right pieces to create a complete picture.
Exactly.
And one of those pieces of the puzzle is Smith's contract. This is the last year of his current deal, right?
That's right. But even with that being the case, it sounds like he's likely to sign an extension. His performance over the past 3 seasons speaks for itself, and the Seahawks seem to have a lot of confidence in him.
It makes sense. He's definitely proven himself. Let's go back to Kubiak for a second. Last season in New Orleans didn't go so well. What can we learn from that experience?
Well, it's always tough to say exactly what went wrong in a situation like that. It's rarely just one person's fault. But it is worth noting that the Saints offense under Kubiak had an unbelievable start to the year. They scored over 90 points in their first 2 games. Then they hit a rough patch, lost 7 in a row, and ultimately the head coach was fired. Whether that decline was mainly due to Kubiak's strategies or other factors is hard to say.
Yeah, it's impossible to know for sure what happened there.
Right.
But what we do know is that Kubiak seems very optimistic about this opportunity in Seattle.
Oh, yeah. He seems very excited about the potential of this offense.
So it's going to be a very interesting season.
Absolutely. It will be fascinating to see how all of these pieces come together. Can Smith continue to play at a high level? Can Kubiak build an offense that takes advantage of all the talent here in Seattle?
A lot of great questions heading into the season.
It's a fascinating case study in offensive strategy, isn't it?
It really is. You've got all these pieces, a talented quarterback, a new coordinator with something to prove, a group of skilled receivers, a solid defense to back them up.
And the big question is, can they put it all together? Can they make it work? Because on paper, the Seahawks team looks like they could make a deep playoff run.
But it all comes down to execution.
Exactly. And a big part of that is how well Smith and Kubiak work together.
They need to be on the same page, trust each other's instincts, and develop a system that takes advantage of Smith's strengths while also addressing his weaknesses.
Absolutely. Which is always easier said than done right.
Oh yeah. Every quarterback has areas they need to improve. It's all about minimizing those weaknesses.
Right. And for Smith, that means finding a way to cut down on those interceptions.
It's not just about avoiding turnovers, though. It's about making smarter decisions and not forcing things when the pressure's on.
You got it.
And that's where Kubiak's experience comes in. He's worked with all kinds of quarterbacks over the years, each with their own unique skill set. He knows what works and what doesn't.
He's seen it all.
So hopefully he can use that knowledge to create an offense that really maximizes Smith's abilities.
Like a tailor making a custom-made suit.
Oh, I like that analogy. Kubiak is the tailor, Smith is the client, and the Seahawks offense is the suit. If it's tailored correctly, it can be a thing of beauty.
Exactly. But it's not just about looking good. It's about being effective. It's about winning games.
And winning games for the Seahawks means finding that offensive balance, supporting Smith with a more reliable running game.
Yeah, we saw over the past couple seasons what can happen when they lean too heavily on Smith's arm. There were some great moments, but also some costly mistakes.
It's a risky strategy. And while it's been exciting to watch, it's probably not sustainable long term.
No, it's not. They need to find ways to to take some of the pressure off Smith, give him more options.
Keep the defenses guessing. And that's why this season is going to be so fascinating to watch. You have a veteran quarterback trying to prove himself a new coordinator, looking to make a name for himself, and a talented supporting cast.
And you, the viewer, get a front row seat to the whole thing. You get to see if Smith can keep exceeding expectations, if Kubiak can design the perfect offense, and if the Seahawks can finally find that balance they've been searching for.
It's all going to be very interesting. So to summarize our analysis of the Seahawks offense, the main question is, can Smith and Kubiak put it all together? Can they create an offense that makes them a true contender? What are the key factors that will determine their success?
Well, there are a few things to watch for. First and foremost, they need to establish a more consistent running game. We talked about how risky it is to rely so much on Smith's passing, so a solid running game would really help take some of the pressure off him.
It would also open up the playbook and create more opportunities for everyone on offense.
Precisely. The other thing to keep an eye on is how well they protect the ball. Even though Smith is a talented quarterback, those interceptions can be killers. So Kubiak's offense needs to emphasize smart decision-making.
It's a fine line, right? You want your quarterback to be aggressive, but he also needs to know when to play it safe.
That's right. And then the last key factor is the development of their young players, guys like Metcalf, Smith, and Jigba and Cross. They all have star potential, but they need to keep improving and become more consistent.
It's like a garden, isn't it?
A garden.
Yeah, you've got all these young plants with the potential to bloom, but they need the right conditions, the right care, the right guidance to really flourish. Kubiak is kind of like the gardener in this scenario. He needs to help these young players grow and reach their full potential.
I love that analogy.
And if he can do that, if he can create the right environment for these players, then this offense could be something special.
It really could.
It could be the kind of offense that takes this team to the next level. It's an exciting time to be a Seahawks fan.
It is. We'll be watching to see how it all unfolds. This is a team with a lot of potential, a lot of question marks, and a lot of storylines to follow.
All right, so as we wrap up our deep dive into the Seahawks offense, let's get back to that big question. Can Smith and Kubiak create something special? Can they make the Seahawks a true contender?
It's the million-dollar question, right? And like we've been talking about, it all comes down to a few key factors. The running game, for example, that needs to be more consistent.
Yeah, I mean, we've seen what can happen when they lean too heavily on Smith's arm.
Exactly. A reliable running game would take a lot of the pressure off of him. It would give them more options on offense and open things up for both Smith and the receivers.
It's about establishing a rhythm, keeping the defense honest. A solid run game makes everything else work better.
Right. And then you've got the turnover issue.
Those interceptions, yeah, they can really kill you.
They can. So another big thing for Kubiak is going to be emphasizing smart decision-making, protecting the ball, taking what the defense gives you.
It's a delicate balance, right? Because you also want your quarterback to be confident and aggressive, make those big plays.
Absolutely. And then there's the development of those young offensive weapons, Metcalf, Smith, and Jigba, and Cross. We've talked about their potential, but they need to keep getting better.
It's all about consistency at this level. Those guys are talented, but they need to produce week in and week out.
Exactly. And that's where a coach like Kubiak can really make a difference, helping those guys refine their skills, reach their full potential.
It's like he's the gardener tending to his plants.
Oh, I like that.
Making sure they have what they need to grow and thrive. And if Kubiak can do that, if he can get this guys playing at a high level consistently, then watch out.
This offense could be really scary.
It really could. The Seahawks could be a legitimate force in the league. And as always, we'll be here to break it all down for you.
We'll be watching closely to see how it all unfolds. This is a team with a lot of potential and a lot of intriguing storylines, so make sure you stay tuned.
And that wraps up our look at the Seattle Seahawks. As always, we hope you enjoyed the show and learned something new. Make sure you subscribe to the channel and like the video if you liked what you heard. We'll be back next week with another episode. Until then, keep exploring and keep those questions coming.